Hi, it's the Lipstick Owl. Thank you so much for watching today. I am beginning my declutter series. I have not done a declutter since 2021. It's been a good year, almost year and a half. And the reason I haven't is I've been trying to be better and more mindful of purchasing what I think I'm going to use. That has been really helpful. And second of all, making sure that there is space in my collection for what is catching my interest. And I am starting today with foundations. I feel like this is probably the one, well, maybe not the one, but there's probably a couple of different genres of makeup inside my collection where I just kind of purchase sometimes with wild abandon. And foundation is one of those that I feel like when I start purchasing foundations, I'm curious because everyone's talking about it. So I need to remind myself to not give into the buzz or the hype and think about, is this formula good for someone who's almost 50? I just turned 48. I do deal with expression lines in my forehead, crow's feet around here. I have loss of elasticity. I have nasal labial folds. My skin is drier overall than it used to be. I still have like combo skin in my T-zone, get a little oily there, but I feel like the older I get, the more my skin type is changing. So some of these are gonna be the wrong formula for my type of skin. Some of these are also just the wrong shade. With so many brands making the effort to have a more wide and varied shade range, I think that's been really good. My default has always been that the lightest or the second lightest shade will probably work for me. And I find that sometimes that's not the case. Some of these are going to be too deep, some of these are going to be too light, and I need to remind myself that when I get the wrong shade, I should take it back and exchange it for the right shade. But beyond that, I need to be reasonable in the amount of foundation purchases I make because I don't wear foundation every day. I love wearing just like concealer and a little bit of powder. So I don't know why I have, I think 31. All right, so I'm gonna move the camera angle and we are going to look not just at formulas, but also at shades and make some hard decisions. Here is everything that I'm going to be going through today. I have two powders in here that I legitimately use as powder foundation. Everything else is liquids or creams, but I'm going to move this to the side and we'll start swatching. This is the first one that I know is gonna go for sure. This is the L'Oreal Age Perfect 4-in-1 Tinted Balm. I have the lightest shade in 10 Fair. The reason I know I'm going to be able to get rid of this is because when I first got it, although I like the way that it feels on my skin, it doesn't last terribly well unless I powder it. And then when I powder it, it still does settle into my expression lines on my forehead. The other reason I'm not going to keep it is look how orange she is. And this is the lightest shade they make. So let me give you a quick swatch of this. It is very balmy and you can see I do have a fairly large divot in here. I did give it a fair shake. It's just not for me at all. I'm always frustrated that L'Oreal doesn't have their full shade range in all of their formulations. I really like the Age Perfect Serum Foundation, but this one here, this 4-in-1 balm, this is just not the right shade or tone for me at all. The Sephora Best Skin Ever, I think, is another easy one for me. I bought this when everybody was talking about it when it first launched. They loved it so much. I got one shade, it was too light. I went back to get this shade, and I feel like this shade is still not the right shade. On top of that, I don't like the way this looks on my skin. If you're curious, this is 10N. I don't know that this is the sort of foundation that gives me my best skin ever, so I'm gonna let this one go. I have these two Laura Mercier foundations. The one with the dark cap is the Flawless Fusion, and then the Flawless Lumiere, or their Radiance Perfecting. Do you see, these are both the same shade. These are the lightest shade. I don't know if they have more shades now, but when I bought these several years back, these were the lightest shades they have, and they never really looked that good on me. I find that now that my skin is definitely older, this matte formula here is just too matte. It really accentuates the texture that I have on my skin, and although it's a much better shade for me, it still is rather, I would say it's still rather yellow, and I have the shade 1N1. This is one I can get to work, but because it is a more matte formulation, it does not really do me any favors now that I'm 48. It looked great when I got it several years back. I've also had this one for a long time. So just on sheer number of years in my collection, I should let this go. But I picked this up on recommendation from Mel Thompson. But this is one I can definitely not hang on to it. Also in 1N1 is the Flawless Lumiere Radiance Perfecting Foundation. I feel like this one just leans a little bit more yellow in tone. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I know these are kind of heavy swatches, but I want you to see that none of these are good shades for me. And I feel like although this one sits really pretty on the skin and has a little bit more of that radiance in it, there are better formulas of this foundation. Ones that are definitely more radiant, more glowy are good for mature skin. And this is my least favorite out of all of the ones that I have in this type of formula. This L'Oreal Age Perfect Radiant Serum Foundation is my fave. I told you how this one here, the balm, is like really orange. This one is gorgeous. Let me show you. This is the shade 10 Ivory. The reason I have this out is this is a refillable cushion. I love this best when I use a sponge and pat it in that way. I do wash this. I disinfect the whole thing. I make sure I go in there with a lot of alcohol, but this compact here is filled up with this Age Perfect formula. I love it. It's not the best shade, but it's the lightest one they have. But do you see the difference between this and this one down here? These are not both like shade 10 Ivory. One is very orange leaning and much warmer. This one's a little bit more neutral, but I like the fact that this is a creamy, radiant, beautiful foundation so much that I'm willing to stock this and carry it with me. This is another cushion foundation. I think this is the only other one I have. This is the Daydream Cushion from M. I have the lightest shade. Oh, she's so pretty. I just put a brand new one in here. But do you see out of all of these, this is the lightest and it suits me the best. I really love this formula. The one problem I have with this is that this settles. This settles into my expression lines in my forehead. It settles into my nasal labial folds. So this needs to be set in those areas on my face where I have a little bit more movement. But when I set it, it's perfect. I love this. It's an excellent color for me, but I really do like that this brings radiance. It does bring hydration, and it does look very, very skin-like. And out of all of these, I think you can tell it's one of the better shade matches. Let's talk about some Charlotte Tilbury base products. My favorite one out of all of these is the Light Wonder. This is such a beautiful foundation. I always have to shake it up. Here is a swatch of the Light Wonder. This is in shade number 1. This is one that I've had for a while, but is one of my favorite lightweight foundations because when I blend it in, it's almost as if you can't see it. It looks like skin. It does bring a little bit of hydration to the face, but it doesn't sit heavy. And it does need to be lightly powdered in areas where I have movement, but I really, really love this. I'm gonna hang on to this. All right, she's not really a foundation, but sometimes I use it like one. This is the Hollywood Flawless Filter. I know it's more of like a glowy product, but I find that I don't use this that much. Why am I not using this? Yeah, I think I'm gonna hang on to this. This is one of those, I know why it's a favorite of so many people. This is the lightest shade in shade number 1. I'm gonna hang on to this for now, but my goal is to cut my foundations or my glowy primey products down enough to be able to reach for this more regularly. All right, this top swatch right here is the Airbrush Flawless Foundation. This is shade number 1. I really don't use this all over my face because it is so matte, because it is so heavy coverage. You know what I use this for? I keep it on hand for the days that I need to absolutely make a zit invisible. I'll use the smallest amount of this. I love this product for that. I know I don't need something this large, but this turns into the best around the face concealer if I'm having a breakout, if I have some broken capillaries, or even just a little bit of hyperpigmentation I don't want to see anymore. This helps get rid of it, but it wears beautifully. This is like if you love high coverage, this is a really gorgeous high coverage foundation, but it is matte, and on my older skin, if I wear it all over and I don't cut it with something a little bit more hydrating like a face cream or a radiant kind of glowy product, this can be too heavy and really age my skin. But to do some very specific, very small spot concealing, this is amazing. I'm gonna hang on to this. Do you see how this is shade 1 neutral? These are all shade 1. They all look so different to me. I am so surprised by this. This looks a little warmer. This looks a little warmer. I'm really intrigued by that. This shade number 1 here, you can see it's still a little too deep for my skin tone, but I make it work. I love this formula, and I feel like the name is perfect. This is Charlotte's Beautiful Skin Foundation. This is the perfect product for people who like medium coverage, people who like a little bit of glow, who like skin to look like skin, because unlike this one here that kind of dries down matte, this one always has a little bit of skin-like reflectivity to it. I'm not saying that it is like uber dewy. My natural oils come up through this foundation throughout the day, and it does look more and more like my skin as my day wears on. There are some products that by the end of the day, the foundation looks terrible. This one I feel looks better as the day goes on. So if you like a light to medium coverage, this is more of a medium coverage, but you can thin it out to light medium. This is a beautiful product, and I really like it. This is one of my favorite products of 2022, and one of those that you can see I've used more than I expected to. I do like that it comes with a squeezy tube with a pump on the end, and mine gets used all the time, so she's a mess. This is one of my favorite drugstore products. This is the Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear Foundation in a powder. I have it swatched right here, but do you see what a perfect skin tone match this is for me? This, by the way, is shade number 5. This is shade Pearl. This is beautiful. This is the powder that I reach for, not during the winter time because it can be a little heavy on my 48-year-old skin right now, but in the summertime when I've got some glow going on around my nose, when I'm done at the end of the day at work and I have a lot less foundation than where I intended on my nose and chin when I take my mask off at the end of the day. I'm a dental assistant and I'm in a mask all day at work. This gives me coverage. This takes down the shine. This is beautiful. I have a pretty large divot in this, and this is one of those products, I can definitely feel it here. I kind of go up and then I whoop, dip down. This is one of my favorite products. I love it, love it, love it so much. And this is one I literally use. Normally a powder like this, I wouldn't use it as a foundation, but I do use this as foundation, not all over the face, but on my nose and chin, and lightly on my forehead with the sponge that comes with this. And then if I want to set my whole face with it on top of a liquid product, I will use a really light fluffy brush and pick up a very small, minuscule amount. But this is a favorite. This isn't going anywhere. Here's another L'Oreal product that I really enjoy. This is the Infallible 24-Hour Fresh Wear. I have the shade 405. At the time that I purchased this, I haven't checked recently, this was the lightest shade they make. And the 05 Pearl right here matches really well with this. This is just a little bit like off a little bit for a perfect skin tone match, but it's pretty good. And I see how fair we can get here, which is why I'm really frustrated when there isn't a better shade match in the Age Perfect line from L'Oreal. I feel like they have the ability to make those shades, they're just not making them. This is a great drugstore foundation, and this one definitely has more coverage. This is one of those that when I need to power through at work all day long and I need it to hold up to taking a mask on and off, this is one that I definitely think of, especially when I pair it with the powder from this Infallible line. This is a great product. This right here is the Catrice HD Liquid Coverage. I have the shade 010 Light Beige. I feel like the longer it sits here, the more it oxidizes. It's turning a little bit, I don't know, is it turning a little olive? But I can also see where it's drying. There's that perimeter where it's a little bit darker around the edge. The center still hasn't finished drying. I don't know. I like this. I feel like it does a really good job of lasting all day, especially if I'm looking for something that gives coverage, that doesn't look too heavy on the skin. This one actually looks pretty nice. But I've had this bottle for a long time. It might be time to let this one go. And if I really like this foundation, and I'm not even sure if they still make it, they may have updated their formulations, get one and see if they have a different shade, because I feel like this one is too dark for me. I can make it work, but I have to like either take it down the neck. I'm trying to do less of that. But this is one of those that I feel like I could probably let go. But it is a really good foundation. So this very yellow looking swatch is the Juvia's Place I Am Magic foundation. When I first got this, I really liked it. This is the shade Bali 720. This, at the time when this first launched, that's when I picked this up. This is an old foundation. actually was the second lightest shade. I don't know if they have amended their shade range, but I'll tell you, this is too heavy. It is very much a full coverage matte look. And this does not look good on my skin anymore. I've had this for several years. I'm gonna let it go just because me and this formula, it just makes me look older than I am. I don't mind looking 48. I don't wanna look 58. And this one really packs on a few extra years. This right here is one of the better skin tone matches for me in my collection. This is the Dermacol Makeup Cover, but this product is no joke. This is full coverage. The fullest of full coverage. And the older that I get, the more I use this for spot concealing. The more I use this for, you know, hiding hyperpigmentation or a blemish. But the truth is I feel like I reach for the Charlotte Tilbury product a little bit more than this. This was the lightest shade I could find on their website. I don't know if there is a lighter shade, and I'm looking at the back here. I see that we are definitely past our expiration date, but other than that, I can't tell you what shade it is. But this is a great product. I feel like it looks better on less mature skin if you're using it as foundation, and if you really love full coverage. This is kind of a more emollient product, but you really have to set it good or it settles into the crinkles. So for that reason alone, and the fact that it is super duper full coverage, I'm gonna let this go. This is the Uma Beauty by Sharon C brand, and this is called their Flawless IRL, Flawless in Real Life. This is the lightest shade they make. I think this is just White Pearl T1. I don't know if they make a 0.5, but this shade can, unless it's the middle of winter, can look a little ghostly pale on me. I feel like here it's doing an okay job, but this is one of those where it's not so much the color, because I feel like the color is good for me. The problem I have with this foundation is that it is really very much a matte foundation and it's drying. I liked it when I first got it and I used it quite a lot, but it was more springtime. And then as the seasons got warmer, I had to powder it a little bit more in summertime when I was a little bit more oily, and it made it look heavy, and it was not a good wintertime foundation for me. So this is one that I only use occasionally. I can definitely let this go. But I feel like out of so many of these, this is one of the best matches, because like when I blend it in, I feel like this looks better than this, than this, than this. This is kind of what I'm looking for, but it really does bring kind of like the ghostly Elizabeth I pallor to my skin. So the shade is good, but I don't know that this foundation is one that does me any favors texturally. Talk about the wrong shade. This is the Misha Perfect Cover BB Cream. This is number 23. So this is a beautiful BB cream. I love the formula of this. This is one of those that, because it is darker, it does have a little bit of gray to it, that I have kept for years to mix with other things. I tried the next lightest shade to this. I think instead of 23 is number 13. And that was too white and too pink leaning. But this is one of those that in summertime, I can kind of get to work, but mostly I've been keeping it to mix with something that might be too light. And I have one of those, and I love the foundation formula. And that's why I have been hanging on to this. And I'm kind of wondering, do I need to just get rid of things that are the wrong shade? I don't know. I'm going to put this one to the side. I wanted to love this Patrick Ta foundation. I have the shade Fair 2. Fair 1 was definitely too pink leaning. This one is a little bit more neutral, but it's still not the right shade. Even when I blend it out, it is definitely, it's too dark. It's too dark. I do have a stripe of this powder right here across the top. I don't know if you can see that there are little areas here of hard pan. I can definitely feel it as I'm going over this with my finger. The problem I have with this foundation, first of all, this is the most like very emollient, very silicone-y, sits on top of your skin. I liked it when I first tried it, and it was summertime. As weather started to get cooler, this looked more and more like I was wearing like a mask of foundation. Part of it was the color. Part of it was also just this really, really emollient and very much silicone-y slip to the face. I have a cream and powder bronzer from them. I have a cream and powder blush. I have the cream and powder formulas in the eyeshadows, and I love all of those. I thought this was going to be that same sort of experience. This turned out to be a fail, so much so that I put it in one of my worst products of 2022. Now, I'll tell you, if I just get rid of this and I use just this. I like the way this powder works. I'm not saying this is like the best powder in my collection, but part of me feels like I paid how much for this? Like 40 what, 50 what dollars? Maybe what I need to do is not think of it as anything more than an enormously large powder compact. All the hard pan in it here is from trying to set this very emollient, very silicone-y foundation, and it leaves hard pan on the powder. But when I use this powder with a brush on other things, I don't get as much hard pan. So I like the way this looks. I don't like the way this looks. It's definitely the wrong color, but I might just keep it to use this more. And if I can pan or get good use out of this, maybe next time I do a declutter, I can let it go. But I've had it for less than 6 months, and I don't really know that I've gotten my dollar's worth out of it. Here is a foundation Lancome does not make anymore. This is their Tante Miracle. This is the lightest shade they make in this formula in shade 100. This is one of those that, you know, when I blend it out, it is a little bit warm, but it works okay. It's not the end of the world. I feel like since they came out with a new formulation in 2022 that was kind of trying to take the place of this, their colors were atrocious. I feel like the lightest shades, I tried all the first 5 lightest shades. They were too orange, they were too pink, they were too gray. They just did not work. This one blends out and I can make it work in shade 100. They didn't even have a shade 100. I think the lightest shade they had was 105 or 110. So they didn't go as light as they did in this formulation, but they don't make this anymore. I kind of feel like I used to love Lancome foundations. The Photogenique was my favorite. I liked the matte version that came in this type of bottle. I just don't think that I need this foundation anymore. I'm gonna let this go because it's old, but it's also not my fave. This right here is probably the one foundation that in my collection is just a hair too light. This is the Synchro Skin Radiant Lifting Foundation from Shiseido. But she's so pretty. All right, I have the second lightest shade in 110 Alabaster. There I think is like a 100 or a 105. The next darker shade of this is definitely more golden in tone and doesn't suit me. So I was keeping this right here to mix a small amount of this in with this and make my perfect shade. And I'm kind of wondering, because I love the formulations of both of these, I feel like this, I get some really good coverage, and I like that it doesn't actually settle into my expression lines as much as some other formulas. If this came in like my perfect skin tone match, I might just abandon everything else. This is a gorgeous foundation. This is one that looks good when it's not powdered. This is one that looks good when it is powdered. This is one that looks like skin. I don't know, on more mature skin, this Radiant Lifting Foundation is just beautiful. I'm gonna hang on to this, and maybe to get it to work the way I want, I might decide to hang on to this too. But man, that Shiseido foundation is fantastic. This right here is the Estee Lauder Futurist Hydra Rescue. This is my new favorite foundation. I picked this up in October or November of 2022, and I love the way that it looks. You can see that it's not quite the right shade. It is a little bit warm leaning here. As I blend it out, I can get it to work, but it is, in my opinion, just a little bit too dark. This is the lightest shade they make in 1N0. Yeah, 1N0 Porcelain. This is the lightest shade. It is a little too dark for me, but I make this work just because of the way it looks good on my face. It looks radiant. It looks like skin. That's really what I'm going for these days. That's why I like the Charlotte's Beautiful Skin Foundation. That's why I like the one from L'Oreal in their Age Perfect line. I am really looking for something that looks beautiful and skin-like. This is gorgeous. It's not the perfect shade match, but I make it work. This right here is Estee Lauder's Double Wear. Everybody loves Double Wear. This is one of those, I see like it actually goes on lighter, but then it oxidizes. And I don't know why that is, but this shade here is the same shade as the other one, the Hydra Rescue. This is 1N0. Yeah, there it is. 1N0 Porcelain. They do have a 0N1 and a 0N0. This shade is actually a pretty good shade match. I feel like this one is just a hair lighter than the Hydra Rescue. I feel like the Hydra Rescue either oxidizes just a little bit more or is just a shade darker. But this 1N0 is beautiful. I reach for Double Wear on a day when I know I'm gonna have like a 14 or a 16-hour day. I reach for Double Wear and I really thin it out. I don't use it like full on like massive coverage, but I also use it on work day when I want my face to still stand when I take my mask off throughout the day. This is a really great foundation. I'm gonna hang on to this. I just wish that instead of charging however much they do for this pump, they would just include one with every single bottle, because the foundation is $40 what dollars, and then they charge you how much more for the pump? Come on, Estee Lauder. If a drugstore foundation can come with a pump, yours can too. This right here is the Fenty Eavesdrop. This is shade number 2. Shade number 1 was too light. I look like a ghost. I feel like this formula is one that I can never get to look good on me. It looks okay, and then all of a sudden, all of my oils come to the surface and I look like a grease ball. And I don't know if this is a formula that kind of brings out oils in the skin and it mixes with this and all of a sudden I look like a greasy pig, or whether this is one of those that just me and my skin don't get along with. I don't get good wear out of this. I don't think it makes me look pretty. And it's also not a perfect shade match. I'm very ready to let this go. I wanted to love it. I kept trying it and trying it and trying it, and I never really had a good skin day with this. So I'm gonna let the Eavesdrop go. Here's one that I feel is very similar to the Eavesdrop. This is the Double Wear Sheer Longwear Makeup from Estee Lauder. This one I wish came in a lighter shade. This is the lightest shade. It's 1N1. I think this came out in 2021, and I really like this foundation. It is not the right shade for me. It is too dark. On days that I want to look glowy and skin-like and beautiful, I reach for this. I just wish it came in that lighter shade because I can make it work, but I really only wear this in the summertime because in the wintertime it is just too dark for my skin. Here is the NARS Sheer Glow. This is the shade Gobi. Okay, this is obviously the wrong shade for me. It's too yellow. I should get a different shade. I like this foundation. This is such a pretty skin-like foundation. I also am going to keep this pump because guess what? NARS doesn't sell this with the pump. But I think I might actually pick up this foundation. This is one of my favorite formulas. I just never was able to use this. The reason I ended up with this shade, I don't know if you remember, and I've had this for, first of all, far too long, but there was a time many, many moons ago when Sephora first started using kind of like a skin tone matching device in store where they would scan your skin and they would say, this is the perfect color for you. And this is the color they told me. And here's where I tell you, I am darker now than I was when I first bought this foundation. And I can't believe they put me in the shade Gobi. If I blend it, it can work, but mostly it just looks really yellow. It's never really the right shade for me. I'm gonna let this go. I am gonna clean the pump and keep the pump on the off chance that I end up picking up Sheer Glow again in my perfect shade. But this is a beautiful foundation. If you like a lightweight, medium coverage with a really glowy skin-like look, even though this is not a brand new foundation, oh, she's so pretty. So this one here is my best skin tone match in my entire foundation collection. This is the Eldridge Seamless Skin Foundation. When I start to blend it, it just becomes one with my skin and you really can't tell where the foundation is. I love this so much. This is my favorite, not just skin tone match, but this foundation. Okay, some things that are great about it. First of all, I do like the component. It's really pretty. My favorite thing about this component is that this pump here comes out in a full pump. That's a full pump. That's like a half or maybe even a third of other pumps. So I can actually, because it is a more expensive foundation, it's nearly $70, I can get just a little bit out, and I can also press down a partial pump. Not every foundation pump will do that. This one is amazing. If you're curious, this is shade number 2. I know it's kind of listed as rosy undertones, and I always wondered, am I rosy and I didn't know it? I don't know. This is one of my favorite foundations. When I just want to look pretty and glowy, I reach for this, and I love, 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 love it so much. I know. Who talks about Laura Geller anymore these days? But this Bake, Balance, and Brighten is one of my favorite products. This is another powder that I use like foundation. I have an old compact. This is like my newer one where there's nothing but the terracotta tile at the bottom and just a little teeny tiny rim around the edge of product that I keep in my purse. And instead of using a sponge or a brush, or I just rub my finger in there, pick up a little bit of the product, and rub it where I need it. over my nose when my nose is looking a little oily, or if I take my mask off at the end of the day at work and I have lost coverage on my chin or my nose, a little bit of this, and I feel like I can go straight into a grocery store or go straight to a friend's house for dinner or whatever I need to do. This pulls the look back together. This is one of those products that I know it's been around forever. I know it's not fabulous and new, but this is one of those. I actually purchased this again when I hit terracotta tile on the other one because it is kind of like a workhorse. This is my touch-up favorite because it brings coverage, and this is the shade Porcelain. This is the lightest one they make. This one is perfect for me. I really like it. This right here is the Merit Complexion Stick. This is their second lightest shade in the shade Slip. All right, it's too dark. It's too dark. I was worried that the lightest shade was going to be too light, but this definitely looks a little bit orange. This works great in the summertime when I have just a little bit more color to my skin, but even here when it's blended out, it's too much. But my favorite thing about this is that it works great as a concealer. It works great as a foundation. This is a product, even though it is kind of like a stick foundation, I actually swipe this underneath my eyes. I do. And I know you're going, wait, what? I love this because this is not really just a foundation. It gives coverage. It doesn't look too heavy. This is one of those that if I don't set it, it's gonna be just fine, even underneath my eyes with my eye serum, with my eye cream. I really like this. I'm dying to try the lightest shade. I'm hoping that's a better fit for my skin tone, but this works in summertime really well when I'm a little bit darker, but it's still too dark then. Is it the worst offender in like too deep for my skin tone? No. Can I make it work? Absolutely. Is it a favorite? Oh yes. Yes, it is. This right here is the new Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Foundation. This is not the lightest shade. This is the second lightest shade in 2N. The one thing that I like about this foundation, I'm still kind of testing it out. The first couple times I wore it, I really liked it a lot. I have been noticing that I have a few problems. I don't think it's the most perfect skin tone match for me, but it's actually not bad at all. As you can see over here, it is it's all right. It's all right. But my favorite thing about this is that in the first 6 hours, it looks so pretty. Remember, I'm 48 years old. This brings glow. This brings radiance. This brings everything I want. And if I set it with the right powder and I don't set it too heavily, it just looks beautiful. This is not one though that I'm wearing on. I have worn it for work. I'm in a mask all day at work. I feel like this doesn't wear well underneath a mask. I feel like I get more wear and tear on like my nose and my chin where my mask is perpetually rubbing. And then no amount of like coverage powder is going to bring this back to life. At that point, I don't feel like this touches up well. But if I am not working and I'm wearing this and I minimally set it in my T-zone and my under eye, this is actually a really, really pretty product. Some people say that there is like glitter in here. I don't know that I'm seeing that. I think that maybe I'm seeing a little bit through the package, but not on the skin. I feel like when it's blended out, there really is no shine or glitter. If anything, it just looks hydrated and glowy. The reviews that I've heard is that for people who have oily skin, this may not be the formula for them. This is not the longest wearing foundation, but she's really, really pretty. I'm gonna hang on to this for now. This right here is the Rare Beauty Positive Light Tinted Moisturizer. This has SPF 20. A lot of these products will have SPF. This is where I want you to know that you are not using enough product to get the SPF that the bottle claims. So you're gonna wanna wear a dedicated sunscreen. Always make sure you do that. This is a new product that I purchased. I like that it is actually really good. It's a hair light on my face. My face is a little bit darker, but I feel like it's a really close skin tone match. This is the lightest shade in 10N, but this is sheer, this is lightweight, this looks like skin. This is such a pretty product. I will link for you in the description box down below where I do my full face of Rare Beauty, but this kind of surprised me. I was not intrigued by their traditional foundation. I didn't want to get that, but this kind of sheer, lighter weight, almost not really wearing foundation. I mean, it's a tinted moisturizer. She's so pretty. And I like that it's actually one of the more affordable Sephora brands. I've been really quite impressed with a lot from Rare Beauty. This one surprised me. I'm looking at this and I'm wishing I had been a little bit more brutal because I'm keeping 19. I know, 19, that's a lot. I feel like this one's only being kept because she was expensive and the powder works, okay? So still, this is a lot of product. I have to remind myself of how much I have before I run out and fall in love with a new potential formula, something that really catches my eye, something that makes me go, ooh, wait, what about that? Remember that I have 19 beautiful products here at home. I'm never going to get through all of these before they go bad, but these are the ones I'm definitely willing to hang on to. And these are the 11 products I'm getting rid of. I feel really good about this though. Some of these are old. Some of these I've had for too long. Some of these are not good skin tone matches for me. Some of these are formulas that I just don't think look good on my 48-year-old skin anymore. I could probably go through and be a little more brutal with the ones that I'm keeping, but I'm gonna leave it here for now. I would love to know what sort of foundation formulas are your favorite. Do you have a brand that you really love? I realized I have a lot of Charlotte Tilbury. I have a lot of Estee Lauder. There are a lot of similar formulas in here. I like something that's glowy, that's skin-like, that brings radiance to the face. What are you looking for in a foundation? Is it more based on price point? Is it more based on, it has to be the perfect skin tone match? Let me know what your criteria are when you're looking for foundations. I'll be glad to get rid of these and happy to have a more reduced collection. Thank you so much for watching. Have an incredible day, and I'll see you again soon.